Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dangerous Jobs podcast. And I will tell you, I already know that this is going to be one of my favorite episodes because I have someone who is famous in my space, famous in the safety professional industry, oil and gas industry. Today, we have James Junkin, who is a noted author on safety topics and the CEO of Mariner Gulf Consulting and Services, a risk and safety consulting firm. And he also serves as the chair of the Veriforce Strategic Advisory Board. Welcome, James. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. And shameless plug here, Roll Tide. Roll Tide.
Woo! We already established.
Shots fired already.
Before we get started, hopefully we didn't just lose anyone. I know we didn't, because if you know James, oh my goodness, well, we're going to link all of his information to connect with him. But James, I didn't have to do much research on you. Obviously, I did to prepare for this episode today, but I'm so on fire to speak with you because you've made such an impact in the safety world. And I don't even know where to begin, but where I do want to start is your story. And I know you have a great story on how in the world you got to where you're at today. And if you would just share with the audience, I mean, gosh, how did this
really
begin?
It really happenstance. You know, I started out once I got out of the Navy. I got a job working in the oil and gas industry as in sales. Can you imagine sales, me and my mouth talking, right? And it wasn't too long that I moved up to president and CEO of that organization. And then I left for a little while and I went to Mercedes-Benz US International and worked as part of their management team and really learned a lot about processes and making things about processes and not so much about being people driven. We want to hire good people, but we also want to train them to a process. And I think a lot of the problems we have in the oil and gas industry is we're having this generational change and you're seeing this uptick in injuries is we lost all this experience and we didn't have a process. It was people's head. But after that, I decided to get out of the corporate world and I wanted to get into management consulting because I paid some consultants. These cats were making $135 an hour. And I said, hey, I want some of that, right?
Yes.
And so we moved to New Orleans, Louisiana and started Mariner Gulf as a management consulting firm working with contractors in the oil and gas industry. Typically less than 150 employees. And I'd go in, we'd talk about management leadership and consulting and getting their accounts receivable squared away and having good contracts and succession plans. And they said, James, here's what we need help with. Hey, brother, you ever heard of IS Networld?
My favorite word.
I said, what's IS Networld? And they said, we need somebody to manage this. And I'm like, well, I can learn to do that.
What year is this again? What year is this?
This was probably 2004.
Okay. I did not mean to interrupt. So they're asking you, hey, do you know what ISN? You're like, what is INS? I don't even know what this is. How do I?
I thought it was an agency.
Yes. So then you began managing their account?
Yeah, they said, we need somebody who can help manage this account. We don't have a full-time safety person. Can you come in and do a safety meeting? And I'm like, I'll learn to do this. And next thing you know, I'm building up a clientele that wants more services in safety than they want in management consulting. We still do management consulting, but it's a lot smaller. And we started out very small as a company, training. I still know what it's like to have 25 knuckleheads in a class on a Monday morning. Nobody wants to be there, and we have to talk about industrial hygiene or something super exciting like that, right? Yes. And we kind of grew the organization, and then the BP oil spill hit.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was my first real tragedy that involved massive loss of life. And I was part of that response. I met the guys at PEC Safety at that time. They needed instructors to go down to Orange Beach, Alabama, Roll Tide, and teach the first responders. And I trained probably 30,000 plus oil spill responders down there.
I graduated at Orange Beach. That's where I graduated, was from Columbia Southern University. But
Hey, I'm
anyways,
there in my doctorate right now.
really, oh, it
Yeah.
was an incredible program. I had such a phenomenal time. But going back to what you mentioned, so then I had no idea you were a part of the response. And so
Yes.
so then what I'm hearing you say is, you were in the safety consulting world. You worked with employees on a day-to-day basis. Now a catastrophe hits. And now this all comes full circle. This is real life now. And so what was it like working on the response team? What do you remember, those emotions, those,
Yes.
I imagine it's something you won't forget.
It impacted my safety philosophy from moving from compliance to thinking about the worker and getting the worker home safe from high hazard jobs. When you're
Sure.
standing on a beach covered in oil and you grew up down there on that beach and you're watching people's livelihoods change. I remember one of the things that impacted me greatly was there was a charter captain who
Mm-hmm.
thought, his life was over, his career was over, and he walked in the wheelhouse and shot himself in the head. And that really brought it home. When you're meeting people who were involved on the rig, you're watching the
Yeah.
rig burn, it really
Yeah.
gives you an impression of what we do matters. It
Yeah.
really matters. And so when I joined up with PEC Safety at the time, their mission statement is, and it's Veriforce's mission statement now, which is they want to provide services that bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs.
Wow.
And unfortunately, as my practice has changed and the company's grown at Mariner Gulf, I have done too many serious injury and fatality investigations.
I can imagine.
I just came out of one this past summer where an employee impacted an energized power line with a telehandler, resulting in him being electrocuted. We've done some back last summer with representing the contractors where there was an excavation tragedy and a father and son passed away. So coming from a blue collar family,
Yes. Yeah.
my dad, I'm not going to say I'm the first one to go to college in my family. My mother's a teacher, but all the men in our family were blue collar workers, going back to coal miners, to loggers. And so you see the impacts on safety on their bodies and their lifespan and, their quality of life that they have in the later years. And I said, you know what? I'm in a situation to impact that and do something about it. So hopefully I'm paying homage to a lot of my mentors. Like I told you before we got started, if I'm anything in safety, it's because I had good teachers. I had good mentors. I had people who were patient with me that taught me the ropes. So just because, I first got started, I thought a good bit of the knowledge I gained in my earlier career was being an instructor. And I think you'd probably agree with me. I learned more in the early days from teaching than probably my students did, right? Students teaching me. So that gave me a good foundation. And then we just grew from that, went back to school, got a master's in occupational safety and health from CSU, fellow alum right there. Woo! Shout out. Whoop, go Knights. And right now I'm in their doctoral program. It's going well. But I'll be honest with you, I'm so tired of going to school.
Hey, tired of going to school, and I know you're somebody that'll never stop learning, whether that be in school, whether that be from your students. I already know that you're so people focused, James. That's so clear to me, and I am, as you're sharing your story here, I'm just mentally taking notes because I'm so excited to chat with somebody that can geek out on safety like you can. Not a lot of people I could do that with, but I mean, and having been, your roots are oil and gas, and to have and so my first funeral that I ever went to was in the 3rd grade by my dad's best friend who died on the rig. And my dad always worked in the drilling industry, was a company man for Noble here in Colorado. And so I got chills down my spine when you explained, when you see the blue collar men in your family, the impacts physically, what that does. And I have seen that throughout my whole life. And I've always wondered, why is there this resistance? Since that funeral, He died on a drilling rig. I was in the 3rd grade, and this guy, I'll never forget, he would come to our field trips. My dad and this guy, his friend, they would come to our school field trips, and mullets and cutoffs and their jeans tucked into the boots. They just got off the rig, and they were like superheroes to us,
Yeah.
and when he passed away, his son was also in the 3rd grade with me. And I'll never forget those emotions that I experienced as a young girl in that funeral of just emptiness and watching their family. Then life moves on, right? And so
Right.
watching this family go on without that father, without that staple in their lives, just always impacted me. And then watching my dad then continue on working on the rigs, watching his friends also lose fingers and have these severe incidents. I was just so intrigued why these men hated safety still. Why is there this resistance? And that's what I'm so excited to ask you about is you've really seen it from, for so many years, an industry that didn't embrace safety almost had this, and it's still there today, but you know what I'm talking about, just that resistance or hatred towards
Yeah,
safety.
I feel it. I tell people all the time, you're not a real safety person till you've had a welder tell you to go F yourself. Okay? You're just not a real safety person until that's happened. Once it's happened, you can join the club. I don't care about your letters. I want to know, have you been cussed out by somebody on the job site? And there's this dichotomy because we're trying to keep you safe.
Yeah.
We want you to go home with all your body parts. But sometimes I think what happens is there's too much focus on the worker and not enough focus on the system the worker has to contend with. Right? So, there's this thing right now, and you see it coming. First, there was behavior-based safety back in the 70s, right? And then we went to HOP and safety 1, safety 2, safety differently, safety new theory every week, right? And really what it comes down to is identifying hazards, establishing risk, and putting controls in place. The further away we are from the worker in identifying hazards, the better we'll be. We're very judgmental in safety. That's why they don't like us, because when something happens, we're always quick to sit back and make moral judgments. You should have done this. Your JSA didn't say that. And I'm like, look, bro, if you had done, I committed safety heresy at the OSHA Oil and Gas Conference this year because I spoke and I said, I don't care if they do JSAs.
Wow.
Because if you've done your job right, if you've done your job right as a safety professional, as a management team, by the time they get to the job, this should have already been taken care of. If the hands could figure out all the steps, all the hazards, put in all the controls, implement OSHA's hierarchies of controls, what do we need safety people in management for?
Wow.
You don't.
You said that speaking. What was the crowd's response when you said that?
Well, some of them smiled. Some of them thought I'd committed safety heresy. But look, I don't want to denigrate the JSA, but here's the problem. I see too many times, the only time anybody has thought about hazards is when the guys get to the job site. By then, it's too late to implement OSHA's hierarchy of controls. So we're just down to PPE. So I think, one thing some of the safety theories have created is an us versus them mentality. Safety versus the worker. When the worker's our best asset, we've been trying, you know why people hate us? Because we've been trying for the last 30 years to fix the worker.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills. You are speaking my language. I completely agree with you. Yes.
And it hasn't worked. It's not worked. If it's worked, then you wouldn't see the SIF trend plateaued. It's worked in the sense that we've driven down total recordable injury rates. But what really kills people is failures within the system. I like to quote Dr. James Reason in his book, Human Error, and I thought it was great, and I always butcher it. But he says, Workers' actions tend to be the final garnish to a lethal brew that has been long in the cooking.
Oh my God.
And when I think about all the fatalities I've done,
yes,
the worker had a role in it, but we set it up. We set it up. And probably one of the worst I've had, man. And I've had some bad ones over the years. But it was 2 years ago, 7 days before Christmas in North Dakota. Truck driver died in an explosion inside the shop. Killed him, burnt the mechanic up pretty bad, like 75% of his body. Within hours, that gentleman was going to leave and go home to 3 little girls and his family for Christmas. He had been a truck driver in Afghanistan in the Marine Corps. Which you would think truck driver, that doesn't sound like a dangerous job. When you think about almost 70% of the injuries in Afghanistan were IEDs, truck driving was a dangerous job in Afghanistan. Okay. He made it home from 2 tours in Afghanistan to die at work in an explosion, all of which was preventable. And his little part in it was that final garnish. And so instead of those little girls getting their father home for Christmas, they got him home in a coffin and a folded up American flag. And I said, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this. And I'm going to spend the rest of my career saying this on every podcast, every article, every training. Hazards are best controlled in the planning of the work.
Wow.
It's too late by the time we get to the job.
James, I don't even know where to begin right now. Oh my gosh. I have never heard it put as simply as you just stated it right there. Is that by the time the worker gets to the job, you are completely right that and I love how you mentioned that they are simply, oh gosh, I can't imagine how many incident investigations you've done. I'm thinking of the ones that I've been involved with and I've conducted, and they all fall in line with what you already said, is that they were simply following what was already planned out in front of them, what the company had already allowed, whether it be a broken process. That was still the culture, and that was still happening with management okay and approval. And so that was just the final cherry on top, was the decision, was that final last decision. But you're exactly right that the work needs to be planned out differently.
And before we get to the job. Now,
before we get to the job,
if you go back, and I'm sure you learned about Heinrich in the injury triangle in school when I first got in safety, that was taught to almost an absolute certainty. You know, these unsafe acts equals this many first aid equals this equals one fatality. And we all know Heinrich has been discredited as a accident causation model. We know that academically. Right. But let me tell you something. His theory is alive and well in the oil and gas industry.
Oh my God. Now, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
Fred Manuel is one of the best authors and researchers of our time. And he wrote a book that they use at Columbia Southern called Advanced Safety Management, a Study of Z10. And it's an outstanding book. I devoured that book, and I keep that book at a ready right over here in my library. And Fred went back and he did a study of 1,000 incidences, everything from first aid to a fatality across a number of companies. And what he found was that in 96% of the time, the incident investigation blamed the actions of the worker, and the corrective action was almost exclusively retraining. 96 out of, you know, and when training may not be the issue, it may not be that they didn't know. Hey, let's consider the work environment, the decisions made by management, tools, methods, processes, procedures. Yes, the worker has a role in this, right? But at the same time, the worker's not totally blameful and accountable for all these particular instances.
I agree.
Now, I want to say something else. Okay. I'm kind of a safety outlaw.
I love it. I can feel it, and I love it.
So we went from safety management systems where all we did was blame the worker.
Yeah.
To some of these new systems where the worker was not accountable for anything.
Sure. One extreme to the other.
And I think we need to acknowledge what human error is. There's people that make mistakes of omission, but there are also people, and you were talking about it earlier, that just don't care.
Sure.
They don't care. They fight against you all the way. They're not going to tie off. They think all this is stupid. And the problem is those people are like a cancer within your safety management system. They will destroy your safety program. So you know what you got to do with those people? Bye.
James, how many times on that note have you gotten the comment from an owner, a small business owner, 150 employees, they say, James, I need you to come in and I need you to write policy, or maybe I need you to train all of our employees because we have X, Y, Z. We have this one employee who's just fighting us. We have guys and gals, but we have this group of people that just don't give a crap, and they're actually, defiant in safety. They've made that known. They made that their personality. James, what can you do about that? How many times do you get that question? And how many times?
And I tell people all the time, look, I don't have this magic safety dust that comes down and I throw all over your company. The first thing, and I'm a big believer in this, there are no bad teams, there are only bad leaders. If that's what your company is, you as the CEO, I'm a CEO, okay? I have to take ownership in the culture. Now, here's another thing that drives people crazy when I say this, but it's cool. There is no such thing as safety culture.
I've preached this, James. I have screamed this on rooftops. There is okay, go ahead. I won't interrupt. Tell me what you mean by that. Explain more, because I'm so in sync with you right now. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
There's not a safety culture that sits over here in a silo that the safety professional is responsible for. And then there's this organizational culture over here that production has. And then there's this culture that the office people have. Hey, it's just organizational culture. Now, I'm not one of these people that if you want to call it safety culture, I'm not going to be mean to you and degrade you or any of that. I'm not into that. But what am I trying to emphasize? When you silo things, words mean things. So as a CEO, I came out of operations as a president and CEO in the oil and gas industry. Man, I got a million things to worry about. Safety's one of them. But if you come at me with safety culture, then I've got this mindset perhaps that that's something you're supposed to be responsible for. And if you're not got a good safety culture and you're the head of my safety, then guess what? That's your fault. When really it's an organizational issue. Safety's never been number one. It's not number one. Having it as a slogan, okay, that's great, but it still is not bringing workers home safe from high hazard jobs.
Yes.
But safety is equal to production and quality. And as soon as you get the CEO and the top management to understand safety, production, and quality go together, the more you can change the culture. Now, how do we go about doing that? Well, I think you have to dig deep into the employees themselves. And I like to do I like to do what we call in American Gulf a psychological safety and organizational culture assessment, where we actually have, a bunch of questions that go out to people. Some of them are similar. They ask in different ways to try to get to some statistically valid data of why workers feel the way they feel. Questions like, when there's a conflict with another contractor, my supervisor supports me. How do you feel about that on a Likert scale? And then get some data and get it down to like, in one company, we were able to dig down deep enough to where I could tell you your problem with your culture is situated in your Hispanic workers in this part of Texas between the age of 25 and 35. Now we can address it. We can fix it. Well, we can't fix it if we don't know what the problem is, right?
Absolutely.
But I think it's continued education at the executive level for them to have safety as a seat at the table when we're planning jobs. Now, let me give you an example. I was on the phone last night with a colleague. They're out there, and all of a sudden they're doing confined space work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they didn't involve safety in it. And they didn't bid for monitors. They didn't bid for tripods. They didn't bid for rescue teams. They didn't bid for all this. See, but if safety had had a seat at the table during the procurement process or the bidding process, it would be incorporated in the price.
Absolutely. I hear what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
But if you don't, then you're like, man, we might want to take a little risk here. We don't have this. Surely it's going to be okay. And then it's not.
Until it's not. Exactly. And how so many things are running through my mind here. I'm just so excited. So when working with a company, let's say that they're in good faith. They're checking the boxes that you just mentioned that really make up a great company culture, not safety culture. I agree with you. These aren't departments that you can really individualize. This is company culture. Do we follow what we say we're going to do or not? And so if you're working with a company where where leaders, CEO, everyone is on board, they want to do the right thing. They're wanting to take their safety program to the next level. What was some advice that you see in today's world? How do you see those companies going to the next level?
Okay, good question, because most companies are not there yet. Most companies are struggling with the fundamentals, right?
Yes.
So I get a lot of questions and I deal with a lot of academics in academic circles and things of that nature, and they're talking about ISO 45001. Well, that's a great safety management system if you're a international company. But if you're XYZ Oilfield Services with 50 employees, and you may not be able to do that just yet. You're struggling with figuring out what policies, procedures, and training are. But once you get together with your policies, with your procedures, with your training, and you've got good hazard identification, right? The next level of that is got to be employee participation and enhancement. You want to know where your next accident's going to be? Go talk to the people that do the work.
I couldn't agree with you more. How many times have you entered an organization that thought that they were, hey, we've had 0 incidents these last 2 years, James. We're just wanting to see what more we could do here. What did you discover within that organization that thinks that they're, have it all together? And when you're talking about then surveying employees and finding out where your next incident is at, what are some things that you often...
What I tend to find is there are a lot of close calls.
Sure.
There's underreporting.
Yep.
Because there's work as we plan it, and then there's real life.
Yeah.
Okay? There's real life. Because things happen. We get behind. We get shortchanged. We got to get stuff done. We act like we plan this work, and it's always going to be linear when it's not. It's very dynamic work environment. So, Conklin talks about barriers and defenses and setting things up where people fail, they fail safely. And I'm 100% for that. And it can be something as simple as this. When we rig, for example, we're using a crane. Well, we're supposed to have a qualified crane operator. We've checked that. The crane's inspected. We've checked the rigging. We've got qualified riggers. But you know what else we do? We build a controlled access zone around it and keep people out of it, because if something happens and that rigging, for whatever reason, doesn't work, we don't kill people. So some people would say, okay, my safety management system failed because we dropped the load. I don't say that. I say the safety management system worked because nobody got hurt. That's why we have a controlled access zone. So if you take that mentality to the job site and you say people are going to make mistakes and you account for it, then people can fail and fail safely. But sometimes when we design work, you're about to get me fired up now. We design work as if we've never made a mistake before in our life.
Oh my gosh. Right? Oh my gosh. Yes.
So if you're a pilot, and this happened after World War II, I love telling this story. After World War II, Americans came home ready to party, right? That's how we got the baby boomer generation. right? So when you check out my grandparents, they were all old and stuff, but they were the first rocking it down. That's how we got the baby boomer generation. Well,
That's
before
awesome.
the war,
Yeah.
mostly rural society, poor, coming out of the Great Depression. Nobody had cars. If they did, they only had, one family vehicle. Very few people had electricity. Nobody traveled and went to the beach. There's certainly everything's kind of slow this summer in Alabama. Let's take off to Hollywood. There wasn't any of that, right? But after the war, they came back and they're like, man, after all this stuff, it's time to party. And they had cash, and the technology changed everything. We went from horse and buggy to atomic bomb in just a very short period of time. So they brought back all these commercial they brought back all these bombers that they had no use for anymore, and they created the commercial airline industry. So people were starting to fly. We take that for granted now, but can you look back in 1932 and think of an average American getting on an airplane and flying to Chicago or wherever? No. Well, they were having a bunch of crashes.
Sure.
The B-26 was crashing on takeoff. And what was happening as the pilots were taking off, they had reached down to adjust their flaps for normal flight. I'm sorry. Instead of reaching down to pull in the landing gear, they were adjusting the flaps. And that would cause the plane to lose lift.
Okay.
So these controls are right next to each other. They're reaching down to pull back the landing gear on takeoff, but they're mistakenly adjusting the flaps. And when you did that, the plane lost lift. There wasn't enough power. They didn't have enough altitude. They crashed. If we took the way we approach people in safety and applied that situation, what we would say today is, well, we need to bring the pilot in and retrain the pilot. Don't grab the wrong lever. But everybody else in the world looks at us like we're crazy and says, if it's that important, move those things as far away from each other as possible. Take that mentality to the job site.
Oh my gosh, James, I feel like you have taken every mainstream concept from the beginning of this podcast and you have debunked it 10 minute by 10 minute, because there are still, I completely agree with you here. The problem is, and you would agree with me, is that there are so many safety professionals, leaders, supervisors, owners who still have that mindset of it's all the employee's fault. Let's retrain, new policy. That's still, I feel in today's world, that's still mainstream safety. And so this concept is brilliant, and it's not just a concept, it's the truth, it's reality. And so what would you say, this is so exciting because you work with so many different organizations today, large and small, I'm sure, and maybe not all the time the 50 to 100 employee oil field company, but let's take that company, the 50 to 100, you know exactly the company I'm talking about. What does that company struggle with today? What are you seeing a lot of mid-sized companies struggling with today? And
moving beyond awareness level training. Okay. This is a problem in the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
But my operator said I only had to have safe land.
So ISN only said we needed awareness, fall protection, the 4-hour and safe plan. I think we're good, right? Oh my gosh, James, you're speaking my language. So
what I tell them is, what you don't understand is I talk to these hiring clients all the time. And unfortunately, I deal with a lot of attorneys all the time. And there's a constant battle that goes on with the operators between legal and safety.
Okay.
And safety professionals want to tell their contractors, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the other. And their legal counsel saying, don't direct the work, don't direct the work, don't direct the work. If you direct the work, we get more liability. And this is why we hired the contractor to begin with, to transfer the liability.
Okay, sure, that makes sense.
The operator, the hiring client, is not your safety mom and dad.
Oh my gosh. You're so right. Yes.
Inside the standards, it says the employer shall, the employer shall, the employer shall. And I hope people listening to this will hear this that I'm about to say and take it to heart.
Mm-hmm.
If there's an incident and you say, well, the operator, the hiring client should have told us this. They didn't tell us we needed to do lockout tagout. They didn't tell us we needed to do fall protection. And you think they're going to come down there and say, I'm sorry you got sued in this wrongful death situation. We should have told you. No, and we're willing to split this jury verdict you're fixing to get against you. It's okay. No, what they're going to do is say, we hired you to do the job. The standard says the employer shall. You're responsible for identifying the hazards. Okay. But we got to change that mentality, because too many people, when I do assessments as part of my consulting role with Veriforce, when our professional services and elite services team goes in the field and does contractor assessments, what we find out is nobody is really doing training beyond this awareness level training.
You're exactly right.
But we got people in confined spaces. We got people working at heights. We got people operating material handling equipment. We got people on aerial man lifts. We got folks doing things where if you make mistakes, folks really die with no training. We can't get a management system in place till we get training figured out.
We can't get a man. If you are exactly right. And we work with so many contractors that use ISN, that use, or, Veriforce, Aveda, whatever, as the go-to, and it is the end all. Whatever they say, what's our training program? Whatever ISN says. That's what our training program is. You are exactly right. And so what a message, because we have a lot of listeners that are either safety professionals or they are supervisors. They are leaders of oil and gas companies. That's the bulk of our listeners. And so that is a huge takeaway right there, is to challenge your training program today. I guess it's Friday. Who knows when this will be aired? But let's look at our training programs and see. Let's make sure that we're not just hitting the ISN required topics. What are our real hazards here? What else are you seeing? I love that.
Let's stay with this third-party verification system just a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing we've got to change is this mentality that just because I'm green, I have an A, I passed the pre-qualification system.
Yes.
All things related to my safety management system are perfect and we're good to go. And they're not. Green does not mean good. Green means you satisfied the minimum requirements of pre-qualification to bid on a job.
Minimum. Right? Oh my gosh. Yes.
Everyone needs to understand, whether it's Veriforce, IS Networld, Aveda, they are doing, and I know this because I wrote a lot of those questions. That's used by a third-party verification system. When I look at a policy, because you're green in a system with respiratory protection, that does not necessarily mean you are covering everything there is that needs to be covered for OSHA, for your hiring client, because it's a glance in time. There's an economic issue involved in this. For me to go through all of your policies, gap them against the standards, do things, I'd charge you $10,000 before I took my laptop out of my bag. For most roustabout companies and, companies that have multiple services. Well, nobody's going to pay $10,000 before they bid on a job. So it's a 70,000 foot overview of your safety program. But you'd be simply surprised post-incident on both the hiring client side and the contractor side. They say, but I was good in X, Y, Z.
Doesn't matter. What I hear you saying is it doesn't matter. That was the basic.
When that compliance officer comes out there to do that inspection, they don't care what your score is. All they're going to do is pull out the standard and say, did you do this? No, you didn't do this. Okay. Here's your citation. Next thing. Now we've seriously injured somebody or we have a fatality. Here come the lawsuits.
Right.
Now that business that you had, I had a client that had 2 fatalities and 2 seriously injured in a confined space incident in 2017. And it was a very complex incident.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of that incident,
Mm-hmm.
the families were taken care of, but that company went from having no bad safety record, no OSHA citations, no serious injuries, no fatalities, and being a $750 million a year construction company. Post-incident, what do you think happened with half of their customers?
Gone.
$350 million walked away for the next 3 years. That's almost $1 billion off the table.
Yep. Yep. I can imagine. No surprise, right? No surprise. Reputation, simply the culture that the organization felt like. How do you go to work after a
It's
catastrophe
hard,
in your
man.
organization?
It's hard. And I would tell people that do fatality investigations and serious injury investigations, it takes a toll on you personally. Like I carry around in my Bible right here, I keep it on my desk right there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a preachy type guy, but that in the Bible is the obituaries of every person that I've done their fatality investigations. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of them have been folks that we were hired to do the investigation, to represent them in OSHA investigations.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a fine line between defending the company and also defending the honor and reputation and doing right by these employees. Nobody wanted this to happen, right? But it did. Mm-hmm. So how are we going to fix it? Blame's assigned at the courthouse. I'm not here to blame. I'm here to fix. So it never happens to somebody else again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think business owners need to understand you either have a safety program because it's the right thing to do and you feel morally obligated, or you do it because it's good business. It's just like church. Some people see the light and some people feel the heat, baby. Okay? So I don't care what motivates you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The result is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And that's getting workers home safe from high hazard jobs. Safety professional's job is hard, but safety itself from a equation is what are the hazards? What are the risks? What are the controls? And the higher up the food chain you do that in the planning of the work, the more likely you are to prevent these instances because you can anticipate where human error can occur. Let me give you one. This was a bad one. Construction site back a few years ago. When they did the layout of the laydown yard and where everything was going to be, and their site-specific plan is very complex, they had this 10 area as the break area, and then they had this pathway where heavy equipment went, and then they had the porta potties on the other side of this pathway where the heavy equipment was. So you go to break, you cross this path, you go to the porta potty.
Okay.
Now, you've been taught since you were a child, look both ways before you cross the street, right?
Right.
But I'm not going to put you on the spot. But even I, as a safety professional, have stepped out in traffic like a moron, playing with my phone or something stupid, nearly got run over, right? We've all done it.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, one night, this guy steps out of the porta potty, doesn't look both ways, and gets hit by a D9 dozer and's killed graveyard dead. The way we approach safety today, they would say that wouldn't have happened if he hadn't stepped out of the porta potty. And what I say is, you've got to anticipate that's going to happen. What in the world are we doing putting the porta potty right next to where we're going to move heavy equipment? Put the porta potty someplace else. Well, they'll have to walk and complain. They'll walk and complain, but they won't be dead.
Absolutely.
Because people traffic and heavy equipment traffic don't go together. See what I'm talking about?
Yes, it's clear. It's clear. And every safety professional, every business owner, anyone in leadership, any employee, the way you spell it out, James, is crystal clear. We today, the action items, I love podcasts that I'm listening to or books where there's action items right now. There's tangible action items right now. And what I hear you saying is that all of us can look at our company's policies and procedures, but more than that, before that, systems, workflow systems, and make sure that all voices are being heard when that work is being planned, is what I'm hearing you saying. And that's safety, and that's operations, and let's collaborate and let's use our past experiences also into this planning of the work versus what's going to.
Absolutely. I want to say this. Dr. Trevor Kletz is probably the father of process safety management. He was a professor down in Texas A&M, and Dr. Kletz is dead now. But he said this, and it stuck with me. Organizations don't have memory. People have memory. Okay? And when the people leave the plant, the memory of the incident leaves with them. Post-incident, everybody's on we're not doing that again. We'll never put the porta potties next to the walkway ever again, right? But if you don't solidify that and put that into the organization's DNA, years down the road, people will forget about this incident. They'll be like, why are we walking so far to put the porta potty? Why don't we put them right here next to the break room? And then that incident repeats itself. And that happens even in large companies. Take BP for an example. BP 2005, Texas City, Texas, an explosion, right? Killed all those workers, injured over 200, 15 workers and over 200 were injured. They spent billions of dollars improving their safety program. And yet just 5 years later, the Deepwater Horizon incident happens, and the Chemical Safety Board found some of the same issues organizationally in that incident as they did in the other incident. A failure to learn from past mistakes.
Such a great way to put it. That's such a great way to put it, is how can we put an end? I think that this is also challenging ourselves to look within an organization and being collaborative with safety, the CEO, the leadership, the boots on the ground. And let's start to think proactively of maybe what has happened in the past within this organization. What has happened in the past notoriously in history in our industry? Because we're all working in most of us working in small towns, or we know oil and gas industry is very small. It's rare that you're the only service company doing just that thing. We can all learn from other companies. So why are we not really learning from other companies' mistakes?
Turnover. And it won't happen to us.
Exactly.
It won't happen to us. I get nervous around the holidays.
I know.
Because I've had multiple fatalities over the years.
Yeah.
The closer we get to Christmas, the worse it gets, right? And sometimes they're not dead, sometimes serious injury, but fires, explosions. This is just anecdotal. I haven't gone back and done statistically valid research to say that December is worse than January or July. But in James's experience, in my career, December is a deadly month. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So we know that we're having problems that time of year. That's when we need to ramp up enhanced inspections, reminders, getting our supervisors involved, making sure they're staying on top of things. Fatigue's a factor at that time of year, particularly the further up north you get, Colorado, North Dakota, Wyoming, out in West Texas. So if we know it's going to be more dangerous that time of year, why aren't we looking at that and planning that into the work?
Oh my gosh. You're exactly right. Mental health around the holidays. My goodness.
Here's one I like to say, and you can borrow this because most of what I tell you, I probably stole from somebody else anyway. Mitigation always costs more than implementation. And you're always under the gun. Now, if OSHA comes out there, serious injury, fatality, you're going to fix it. It's just you're going to fix it under the gun.
Right. And everyone knows what you're talking about. Everyone knows.
I don't care whether you get a $7,000 citation or you get a $170,000 citation. That's not the big issue. The issue is what color you going to be in IS Networld, Veriforce, or Avetta. And that color is probably going to be red.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's bad business to begin with. The cost of mitigation or abatement. Let me put it that way. The cost of abatement is always more than having put the mitigation plan in place to begin with. So after the fact's always going to cost you more money.
Absolutely.
Hire qualified safety professionals, get involved, and make safety part of what operations does. Mm-hmm. Safety is not my job. Mm-hmm. In most companies in the oil and gas industry, in them 150 and below companies we're talking about, the ratio of safety professionals to the hands is 1 to 100 to 150 to 200.
You're exactly right. You're spot on. Mm-hmm.
I can't get up in the morning and dress you. You got your safety glasses on? Is that Z87, bro? Have you bump tested your 4-gas? And dress you like you're going to kindergarten. You're a grown person, right? You're a good adult. But what I can do is coach the supervisor and say, look, Han, make sure these guys do it. Mm-hmm. Because accidents don't announce themselves and say, on next Thursday, at 6 p.m., we're going to have a 30-foot heater treater pipe that goes up on the heater treater shack there, fall off a rigging and hit someone in the head.
A week before Christmas.
Yeah. It doesn't announce itself. It just happens. And then afterward, it's very obvious to everybody. And then it's most obvious to the jury of your peers.
James, I'm going to listen to this podcast several times over and over because you have shared so many. Sometimes I take notes. I felt like I would have been writing, James, the entire time that you were speaking.
You're too kind.
I'm not kidding. It just sets me on fire to talk to somebody as passionate about their work when it is someone's life's mission to bring workers home safely. It's a rarity that I get to talk to someone like you, and you're doing just that. James, I want to honor you for your life's mission dedicated to truly bringing workers home safely and enhancing the lives of these blue collar workers. Your giftedness, James, is written all over you. I feel your energy from here in Colorado. I'm so genuine when I say I'm honored to be connected with you because you are changing the world.
Well, I'm honored to be connected with you too, because you interact probably more at the task level than I get to do anymore. You know, I like to still put on my boots and go out there with the guys. I don't get to do that as much as I used to. But I want to leave you with this because there's a lot of burnout in the safety profession.
This is how I wanted to end it anyways. So I was just going to say this. I was going to say, what is your last and final advice for a safety professional trying to take the company to the next level, or just someone in leadership trying to take their company? So please, what is this final advice? I'd love it.
You'll never know how many lives you saved, but you'll always remember the ones you didn't. Okay? I had that instant before Christmas. I thought the CEO was going to smoke himself. Mm-hmm. He went into that big a depression. Like he didn't leave his house for 3 months. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't directly involved in this incident. He wasn't even around. Mm-hmm. I had a safety professional, been with me for 10 years, that was directly involved in this investigation and knew the people who died, or the person who died and the other person who got injured. He had to get out of safety. He couldn't take that responsibility anymore. So there's a toll that's on safety professionals.
There is.
When things don't work right. But for my advice is look for small wins. Look for small wins. If everybody went home today, that's a win. If nobody had to leave in an ambulance, it's a win. Right? Have a plan of where you want to go. There is no magic pixie dust that you can go out there and all of a sudden everybody's wearing their safety glasses in the morning. You don't have some dude wearing them on the back of his hard hat, or everybody chugging monsters on break. There's no magic dust for that. But if we can just start off and say, hey, we got every hazard that's out here on this JSA, and we've got controls in place, and we're getting better. We got a plan of action. We're learning from our mistakes. We're putting real corrective actions in place. Those are positives. Take those wins. Take them. Because now at this part of my career, people don't call me to teach class anymore. I used to like teaching a lot of classes, Yeah, now they call me and they say, James, I've got 2 dead in an excavation 2 months ago, and we just got our OSHA citations in the mail. Can you help us? And by then, it's almost too late. I can still help you, but it's almost too late. It's almost too late.
You couldn't have left it on a better note, James. That was beautifully said. For all the safety professionals listening, hey, business owners, leadership, wherever, take the small wins.
Take the small wins. I think that was beautifully said. Again, James, I could talk to you all day. I could talk your head off all day. We went over so much on time. So I want to thank you for that. I want to honor you for the time, honor the time that you gave me. But thank you again, James, for impacting our industry, serving the way that you have, and being a leader in this community. You're someone that I greatly respect and will continue to follow. Well, thank you for having me. And let me say this. Thank you for doing this podcast, because this gets out to other people. And I listen to podcasts all the time, and I learn from others. Education can never hurt you. Thank you for helping educate all of us and giving us a platform to speak, even if I am a guy from Alabama, Roll Tide.
That's how we'll end the show. James, thank you so much. And we will be talking again. We are doing another episode. I'm getting squeezed into your calendar. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We're going to link James's information. If you would allow us, James, if someone has a safety professional, has a question, or a company is needing to get in contact with you, what is the best way? We'll link your information in the bio, but what's the best way for someone to get in contact with you?
Well, I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's a good place to go. It's easy to find me, James Junkin. My email is at james@marinergulf.com, and my Veriforce email is james.junkin@veriforce.com. So email, but LinkedIn's a great place to have a discussion. Shoot me a message. Chime in on one of the posts we got there, and let's have a discussion, man. I can learn from you. You can learn from me. We're all dedicated for the same thing. Let's get these workers home safe from these high hazard jobs.
Thank you so much, James. We'll talk soon.